Good morning, everyone. Happy hump day to you. We have made it through the middle of the week. Get excited. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020, and we are going to continue working on mixed fractions in this portion of the Fundamentals of Math series. Remember, if you need a refresher on fractions, I do have part 1 and part 2. And I believe this is part 3, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not, I think it might be part 4. But either way, I've broken down the fractions into different sections, okay? So yesterday, we started working with fractions that have the same denominator. Today, we are going to be adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, okay? So there are a couple of rules that are involved in that. So please make sure that you're taking good notes and paying attention. If you are watching this as a playback video, as always, you can pause the video at any given moment, write down your notes, and press play and continue on with writing your notes, okay? Now, this is definitely, in some instances, this is going to reinforce how to convert mixed fractions into improper fractions and vice versa. Because again, if you have an answer that needs to be converted from an improper fraction to a mixed fraction, this is going to help reinforce those rules. And if you missed yesterday's lesson on that, I'm going to leave information towards the end of the video. So that way you all can go back and rewind and watch those videos, okay? Today, I will not be before you all too long. Because unfortunately, I am not feeling of the best for today. I am praying that I get back to 100% in tip-top shape because, again, I am a fervent believer that as your favorite nerdy educator, my job is to give you all the best quality content possible. And it's very important to me that I give you all that because you all deserve that, okay? So again, this video will not be long today. I will be sure to leave additional resources, as I always do, in the pinned comment section on my channel. So please make sure that you are reading the description box and make sure that you are, make sure that you are looking in the pinned comment section for worksheets, handouts, or any additional resources such as websites and links to different avenues for information. Okay. So what I've done is I have a particular worksheet, and this will be the worksheet that you all will be getting today as practice. And I just wanted to go over a couple of problems, and I wanted to make sure that we are comfortable with adding and subtracting fractions, mixed fractions with unlike denominators. And there's my handy dandy toolbar. I will be doing a lot of typing today. I'll try my best to do a lot of typing so that way you all can see each step in its form and how it works. Okay, so the first problem that we have 2 1/5 plus 1 3/4. Now, I am here to tell you that this is not your answer. So if you think that 3 4/9 is the answer, you are incorrect. So I'm going to put a sad face right there. When it comes to adding and subtracting mixed fractions, you do not add the whole numbers together, and you do not add the top numbers and the bottom. You do not do that simply because that's not a part of the rules. That's just not how it works. You first have to recognize whether or not you have the same bottom number. And in this instance, we do not have the same bottom number. Okay, so because we don't, that means we're going to have to follow some extra rules here. Okay, so remember, 3 4/9 is not your answer. I'm going to X that out to let you know that that's not your answer. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type out some rules for us. Okay. And this is going to work for adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Okay. So I have step one. You're going to check to see if you have the same denominators, which remember are your bottom numbers. If you do not have the same bottom numbers or the denominators, you're going to have to find the least common denominator. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do in finding the least common denominator, and I'm going to switch back over here. Remember, we're going to look at 5 and 4 as our the numbers that we are going to look for to see what 5 and 4 have in common. Now, remember, how do you find the least common denominator? You're going to count in multiples by 5, and you're going to count in multiples by 4. So again, making sure that you know how to find the multiples and knowing your multiplication and your division is going to be so important. Okay, that's going to be very, very important. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to count by 5s. So I have 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I'll just stop right there because you really don't need to keep going. Just do a couple of numbers. I'll say maybe the first 5 multiples of each number, depending on what number it is. Okay, and now I'm going to count by 4s. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. Now, my least common denominator or my least common multiple that they have in common is 20. So I am going to underline 20. Okay. And LCD is simply meaning least common denominator. Okay. So what I'm now going to do is you're not going to mess with your whole numbers as of yet. So don't bother with your whole numbers. Okay. So I'm just going to rewrite 2. And now I'm going to use 20. Because remember, 20 is my least common denominator. All right. Now, let me also put this up here too. Do not worry about the whole number. Do not worry about the whole numbers. Okay, so we're just going to leave 2. Remember, our whole number is the number that sits in front of the fraction. So I have 2 and I have 1. I'm not touching those. I'm leaving those alone as of now. Okay, now my next step, step 2. Okay, you are now going to divide So we are going to divide the old, and normally up here I write old, but this is the old denominator, which is 5, and our new denominator, which is 20. So 5 divided by 20 gives me 4. Okay? And let me make sure you do this for both fractions. So you're going to do this for both fractions. So when I say 5 divided by 20, that's going to leave me with 4. So I'm going to write multiply by 4 up there, okay? And that's going to actually be step 3, but I'm just showing you how you can do this, okay? And so we have 4 divided by 20, and that gives me 5. So I'm going to take that number. So this is actually step 3. Okay, so what I've done is I am going to take that answer, which I did, and I am going to multiply it by the old numerator. So when I divided 5 into 20, that gave me 4, and 1 times 4 gives me 4. So now this 4 serves as my new numerator, okay? And when I divided 4 into 20, that left me with 5. And when I multiply that times 3, that gives me 15. Okay? Okay. All right, so now step 4 is you are going to now add your fractions, because now your fractions have the same denominator. So we can now add these fractions. Okay? Okay, so now you're going to add your fractions, and you are going to simplify if need be. Okay, so now we're going to add our whole numbers together, which is 2 plus 1. That gives me 3. Now I'm going to add only my top numbers. So that's going to be my numerators. So that's going to be 4 plus 15. That gives me 19. And my 20 stays the same. So my final answer is going to be 3 as my whole number and 19 over 20 as my fraction. Okay. This is very important, making sure that you follow these rules step by step by step. And again, it's important for you to know your multiplication and your division. If you are not confident in your multiplication and your division as you feel where you should be, or where you feel where you need to be, there are a plethora of resources out there available to help you study and memorize and remember your multiplication and your division. Excuse me. Because remember, as you advance to higher level math, such as pre-algebra, algebra, and if you desire to go to college, college math, trigonometry, pre-calculus, all of those types of maths, This is the foundational groundwork, because again, math is a subject that's very repetitive, but you're going to see the same certain concepts. They're going to be the same, but they're going to be presented in a different way. So that's why it's very important that you make sure that you have the fundamentals of math. This is why I call this series the fundamentals of math down pat. Okay. Now, the good news is we do not have to simplify 19 over 20, because 19 over 20 is already in its smallest form. So this would be my final answer. And we are going to give this a smiley face, because we like smiley faces around here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to the next slide, because we've done an addition problem. Now we're going to do a subtraction problem. And this problem actually may involve regrouping. We talked a little bit about regrouping, I believe, on yesterday. But if not, again, I'll be sure to leave the playlist or the video that we worked on. I'll be sure to leave that towards the end of the video. Okay. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to follow these steps, but I'm going to add some extra information as it relates to subtracting mixed fractions. Okay. So here I'm going to follow the steps, check to see if I have the same denominator, and I don't. Okay. So I'm going to not mess with my whole numbers right now, and I'm actually going to write this a little differently. So the way that this is written, it is written horizontally, meaning it's going from left to right. I am going to write this problem by stacking the fractions on top of each other, or vertically. Okay. And there's a reason for that. So I have 3 1/2, and that's going to be minus 2 2/3. Now, you would not subtract 3 from 1. That you would not do that. So let me go up here and tell you what the answer is not going to be. The answer is not going to be, okay, that's 1, and oh my God, I can't subtract 2 from 1, and I can't, so don't do that to yourself. Understand that there is a process that you must follow, and there is a process that is happening. Okay, so I can tell you right now, whatever you thought to do, don't do it. Okay. So I'm just going to erase that. Okay. So we're going to see if they have the same bottom numbers. 2 is my bottom number and 3 is my bottom number. We know that that's not the same. So now what I have to do is I have to find my least common denominator. Okay, I'm going to change these numbers up here because we are no longer dealing with 5 and 4. We are now dealing with 2 and 3. Okay. So remember, you may want to start off again with the first 5 multiples. Now, if you are not sure what a multiple is, again, I will leave the playlist of Fundamentals of Math at the end of this video, where I talk about the difference between factors and multiples. So what you're doing is you're finding the least common multiple. Okay. So we have 2, 4, 6. I knew I was going to do that. 8 and 10. Okay. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. So I only did the first five multiples for each number. Now, my least common denominator is going to be 6. So I am going to highlight 6 here, and I'm going to highlight 6 here. So my LCD is 6. All right. So now I'm going to follow step 2. So this is where okay. So again, I'm not going to mess with the whole numbers. I'm going to rewrite them. Okay. And I'm going to rewrite my fraction as 6 being my new denominator. Okay. So divide the old denominator into the new one. Okay. So 3 divided by 6 gives me 2. 2 divided by 6 gives me 3. Now, again, you do not have to do this part, but again, I just wanted to show you what it would look like step by step. Now, I took that answer. I am going to take that answer, and I'm going to multiply that number by the old numerator. So 1 times 3 gives me 3, and 2 times 2 gives me 4. Now, we have come across a very unique situation because I'm subtracting, but the problem is my top fraction is smaller than my bottom fraction. So again, if I wanted to borrow $4, from you, but all you had was $3, that means you're going to have to borrow $1 from someone else. So that's exactly what we are going to do. We are going to take that step. Okay. And it looks like I'm going to have to make this writing a little bit smaller. Okay. Because I want to make sure that I have enough room to write. All right. All right. Now, I'm going to add, if your top fraction is smaller than your bottom fraction, you must regroup or borrow. Those words are used synonymously, just depending on what book you read or whatnot, but they basically mean the same thing. So I'm just going to say you must borrow the whole number. Now, this is where the whole number comes into play here. Okay. So I'm going to save this, Ashley. Now, we are not going to subtract anything just yet because we still have to follow some more rules here. Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. All right. All right. All right. So again, I'm going to have to borrow. So now I'm going to switch colors here because I want to make sure that you all see the process and how this works. And I hope that I have enough room to do it. So now I'm going to switch over from this lovely blue, which is a very nice color, to the red. Okay. Now I'm only focusing on my top fraction. Do not worry about the bottom fraction. We are only focusing on the top fraction. Okay. Now, I am going to subtract, and I'm going to go ahead and type this while I'm, all right, so this is going to be step 4. Subtract Subtract 1 from your whole number. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to subtract 1 from my whole number. So 3 minus 1 gives me 2. So now my whole number has gone from 3 to 2. Actually, let me undo something real quick. Okay. There we go. Oh, there we go. So I subtracted, and I'm going to write in red 3 minus 1. That is where I got this 2 from, okay? I'm crossing that out because I subtracted 1 from my whole number, okay? Now, this is going to be very, very important, and a lot of people miss this step, and this is where a lot of people get confused, okay? Okay, so you're going to subtract 1 from your whole number. The 1 Okay, now let me make sure that I explain what I just typed out to you. The one number that you took away, so when we took 3 minus 1, we are going to focus on this 1. The 1 that you took away, you are now going to change that 1, the 1 that you borrowed, you're now going to change that to a fraction. And when I do this, this is what I have. I have 9 over 9. Okay. So I want to make sure I'm going to say it again. So again, if you're watching this as a playback video, you can pause it, let it marinate, let it sink in. If you are here in class with me right now and it's still not coming to you, once I post the video, then you can, rewind and get that understanding, okay? So again, 3 minus 1 gave me this 2. So that's the reason why I put the arrow there to show you what I did. Now, the 1 right here, I'm going to underline it. The 1 that I subtracted, the 1 that I borrowed from the whole number, I simply, let me do this. All right, there we go. The 1 that I borrowed, I changed that to a fraction. Remember, a number over itself is 1. So 10 over 10 is equal to 1. 12 over 12 is equal to 1. Any number that's over itself equals 1. This also goes with negative fractions. So if I had negative 5 over negative 5, that gives me a positive 1. If I had negative 20 over negative 20, that gives me 1. Okay? So again, the 1 that I borrowed, I simply turned it into a fraction. And now I'm going to add the remaining, I'm sorry, why I put 9? That's a 6. Sorry, y'all. I know y'all looking like, how'd she get that 9? It's 6. My apologies. Okay. All right. So it's going to be 6 over 6 because you want to make sure that you use the same denominator. Okay. So now I'm going to add that to 3 over 6. So what we actually have here, this fraction 2 6 over 6, that's equal to 3, because remember, 2 plus 1 gives me this original 3. And I just added the 3 over 6 to it. So in essence, you can think of this as an expanded way or stretched out way of writing this fraction 3 and 3/6. Okay. Now, I'm now going to add these fractions together. Why? Because I have the same bottom number. And that is going to give me 2. 6 plus 3 is 9. I think that's where I got the 9 from in the first place. Over 6. Okay. All right. So I'm now going to add that extra step there that I did here. Subtract 1 from the whole number. The 1 that you subtracted, you would change that to a fraction. Then you're going to add the remaining top fraction. So that's what we did. We added the remaining fraction, which was the original fraction, 3 over 6. And we added that to 6 over 6. 6 plus 3 gives me this 9, and keep the bottom numbers the same. Okay, so you wouldn't add the bottom numbers. Do not add the bottom numbers. Okay, do not do that. Okay. Okay. Now, I'm now simply going to move this fraction over here. And now you're going to see that this is solvable simply because my top fraction is now bigger than my bottom fraction. And that's what you want. You want your top fraction to be the largest fraction on top. If it is not, then you're going to have to follow these rules. Okay? All right. So let me put this here. This is going to be your new fraction, which should be bigger than your bottom fraction or larger. Okay? Now, you're going to subtract your fractions and simplify if need be. Okay, so now we can subtract. Because remember, my top fraction is bigger than my bottom fraction, and that's what you want. So 9 over 6 minus 4 over 6 gives me 5 over 6. Remember, I'm still subtracting. Okay. 2 minus 2 is 0. You would not have to put a 0 right there. So you can leave this part blank because we know that 2 minus 2 is 0. So you don't have to write a 0 right there because it makes the fraction kind of look silly. Okay. So this would be my final answer. 5 over 6. That's my final answer. Okay. So with subtraction, if it involves borrowing, some fractions that you may subtract may not involve borrowing or regrouping. Okay, so that's why you have to make sure that, again, you can recognize, and if you follow these steps and you find that you come across a problem like number 2, these are the steps that you're going to have to follow. Okay, so again, this is just reinforcing those basic arithmetic skills and making sure that you understand how to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to give you a sneak peek. This is the actual worksheet that I will be emailing to my students that are watching. And this will also be linked in my pinned comment section. But the good news is you've already done 1 and 2. So you just have to do the rest of them. Okay. Now these are mixed fractions. So let me make this bigger so that way you all can see it. As you can see, some fractions have the same bottom number. So if they have the same denominator, you don't have to follow any steps. You just simply add or subtract. Okay. If they have different denominators, then you're going to have to follow the rule of finding least common denominators and all of that good stuff. Okay. All right. And again, you want to make sure that you are simplifying your fractions, and or if you have an answer that comes as an improper fraction, you want to make sure that you change it to a mixed fraction, because improper fractions are not proper. Okay. So again, this is actually going to conclude our lesson for today. Again, the good news is I've already done numbers 1 and 2 for you. So if you need a reference, once the video is posted, you are more than happy. I encourage you, I implore you, please, to go back and to watch the videos, okay? And making sure that you are following step-by-step instructions on how to add and subtract mixed fractions, okay? And this will also come along with the answer sheet as well, so you can check your own answers. Again, making sure that you are following the steps properly and correctly. And if you make a mistake along the way, when you check your answers and you go back and you realize you may have made a mistake, you can again reference this video as a guide for you, okay? All right. So tomorrow, we are going to be discussing multiplying and dividing mixed fractions, okay? Again, I think out of all the operations, multiplying and dividing fractions are really, really easy, but you have to know your multiplication and division. So again, if that's something that you may have always struggled with, or if that's something that you feel like, I know I need to be strong in this area, please take advantage of the resources that are out there for you. You have YouTube videos on multiplication. Some of them have songs that can help you remember the multiplication tables. There are also charts. There are also other videos, worksheets. There's a plethora of information at the touch of your fingertips. So please make sure that you take advantage of the resources, use your time wisely, and make sure that you all are taking this time to study and sharpening those skills, because that's definitely going to be very, very important. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share. Oops. All right. So again, I really do appreciate you all for joining me and coming to class today. Again, I'm really not feeling the best, but I hope you all understood this lesson, and I hope it made sense to you. So if not, please refer back to the video. I'm going to go ahead and post this video so that way you all can have it. And also, I will be sure to email you all the worksheet that I just showed with the answer sheet, so that way you all can have that as a resource as well. Okay, so if you have any questions, please send me a text. Please email me. I want to go ahead and try to get this video uploaded for you all as quickly as possible, so that way you all can have access to it. And again, for anyone watching the playback, I will be leaving the playlist at the end of the video. It may be over here. It may be over here. I don't know, but make sure that you click on it for any references that you may need. Okay, so again, thank you all so much for your flexibility in working with me. Please pray that I be back at 100% tomorrow. I'm praying that I do as well. And we're just going to wrap up fractions and put a pretty little bow on it. So until tomorrow, Ms. Hampton loves each and every one of you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Continue to stay safe. Continue to protect yourselves. Continue to, you know, do whatever it is that you do to keep you and your family safe. And until tomorrow, bye. Have a blessed and wonderful Wednesday.